Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys from Canada. You know we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful October 1st, 2018. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, I'm in a little bit of misery, like about a dozen NFL teams were yesterday after losing. I had too much seafood today.
Seafood again?
Yeah, man. Every time I saw food, I was eating it. So I was eating too much food.
Yeah. Well, you know you're not still working out, Big Z. You working out, but you're not bench pressing 450 pounds like you did back in the day, Big C. Sometimes that work can deceive you, Big Z. Speaking of deceiving them good old boys across the pond, they got a hold of us in the FedEx Cup when they said all's fair in love and golf. We know they got it from all's fair in love and war. So much happening in the sports universe. Had a lot of good things happening in the world of college football over the weekend. Some dynamic games that just happened. And we know it's about trying to find out who's going to get ready for that college football playoffs. And again, NFL football. We told you there was a Vin Rames scene that I thought I saw for the Oakland Raiders and Cleveland Browns game on Sunday, but also Major League Baseball is swinging the bat. But Big C, before we even get started, what kind of seafood did you eat, Big C?
Charlton, everything that wasn't moving and that was hot. That's what I was doing.
That's what you were doing?
If I opened up the fridge and saw something, the stove was right there in a close proximity.
That's funny.
And so, it was, it's one of those things where you just can't get enough. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're full, but it's like, God, I got a taste for something else.
Yep.
And you're always trying, and the bad thing about having a house and a big fridge,
yep,
there's always leftovers.
Yeah.
There is. Because when we cook down here, we cook.
Yes.
We cook like 9 people coming over there, but 2 people in the house.
Yeah. That's funny.
And so there's always containers. And, and it's like, I don't know if anybody's ever played the shell game where somebody's ripping you off on the corner and, telling you to find what's under the shell. That's what it's like going through containers. So nobody writes the name on what's on a container. It's like, okay, what's in this mystery container?
Yes.
And all of a sudden you open it up, something smells good. Okay, let's heat that up.
I understand. Speaking of smelling good, this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. Big C, I thought you were on TV again. I get up early morning over the weekend, and I'm watching this thing about NFL fantasy football players. Your friend, maybe he's your cousin, Matt Hasselbeck, and some other good old boy they said the #1 fantasy show in the universe. They had no emotion behind it, Big C. It's like going to some of those churches down south with a preacher, he's fire and brimstone. You can feel what he's saying. But them good old boys in their plagiarism, they said that they're the #1 fantasy show in the universe. Nobody was excited, Big C. If you're going to steal, at least steal it right, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I guess when you don't have your glasses on and your contacts get left right and you start squinting, you don't want to say it too loud because it might pop out.
Right.
It's amazing that the words that we use throughout our show, Charlton, constantly, week in, week out, day in, day out, are constantly matriculating their way into these other sports programs.
Yeah.
It's like when I heard Skip Bayless the other day call Shannon Sharp, and tell him that Kirk Cousins was his cousin. We already know that he's related to you.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, Skip's trying to put him on Shannon.
That's so funny. I think sometimes people just got to be real with it. It's like the Middle Passage. The Europeans are stealing everything. They stole everything from the African continent. They're trying to find the vibranium, and they're trying to find the Big C Sports Show. I do want to touch on one thing before we get into some baseball, because I know that's on the top of the mind for a lot of people. But when I look at what's happened with the NFL, LeBron James actually came back and he had a speech, but it wasn't about the basketball game for the Lakers. He said, Cleveland, you got robbed! Just like Cleveland, this was for you, Big C. Now, the Cleveland Browns got robbed. But before we even get into the NFL, I know there's a lot going on in baseball, and teams are deciding right now who's going to hunt for Red October. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, just some exciting baseball today in Chicago, where you had the Brewers and the Cubs going at it, Charlton, basically in a one-game playoff to see who's going to win the division.
Yeah.
And, the Brewers came out on top of that, Charlton, 3-1, led by Christian Yelich, who will most likely be the National League MVP, Charlton. That's an exciting, dramatic end to the baseball season. Everybody says, well, the early season slumps don't matter.
Yeah.
All 162 games matter. That's the reason why leagues have their entire season, and you play it out. The one thing that I would love to see altered about baseball, Charlton,
what's that?
Because you have this scenario where you have an even game series. Makes it odd. You got 162, make it 163. That way we don't get to this scenario where you have this one game, play it in to see who's making the playoffs. Because they added that wild card team several years ago, Charlton, eliminate that just by adding one game or take one game away, either 161 or 163.
Yeah.
That way you got a clear-cut winner in baseball.
Well, they figured that out. The kids in elementary school, when they play Ring Around the Roses, they don't have a chair for everybody. Somebody's getting left out. Maybe they should let the kindergartners teach them how to strike together and put together a good rule for how many games they played. But going back to the Coliseum was rocking on Sunday. John Gruden got his first win since, I think, about 2008. But I think more so than John Gruden getting the win, I think some of them good old boys from Las Vegas won the game, too. They said the Raiders were going to Las Vegas, but they didn't. I mean, they really were on their way, especially with about a minute, 50 seconds to play. The Browns got a first down, and they said, they went to the TV. They said, no, he did not land on the yellow line that we all saw on TV, Big C. They actually moved it back, Carlos Hyde. But even before that, Baker Mayfield, he had a good game, but there was a time when the car got sacked, but he was still standing up. They stripped the ball, and the ball was bouncing on the ground, and the officials called the time, or they called the stoppage to the play while the Cleveland guy had picked up the ball, and he was running with it, Big C. Is that what the NFL is doing when they say we want to make sure we get it right, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the more and more you look at replay, Charlton, the more and more appalling it becomes over time. And I don't care what level you're looking at, whether you're looking at college, whether you're looking at professional, baseball, basketball, football, Charlton, it's becoming more and more appalling. It's like your Hall of Fame friend said, we got to teach you to believe that you didn't see what you saw.
Yep.
And that's what you told people. But, I think the biggest thing, Charlton, when the Supreme Court lifted betting on sports across the United States, where you just didn't have to be in Vegas.
Yeah.
Because if you can wager a bet anywhere, anytime, Charlton,
really?
And who knows whether it changes the outcome of things. We know going into this game that the point spread was 2.5.
Yeah.
2.5. Anybody remember the final score, what the spread was?
45-42.
It was 3. And so when you look at this fumble that didn't occur. I mean, we saw it a dozen times just being NFL games.
Yeah.
Where quarterbacks were stripped of the football.
Yeah.
And the opposing teams are recovering, Charlton.
Yeah.
But in this incident in daylight, wasn't even in a dome stadium. This was in daylight.
Yeah.
There were no shadows.
No.
It was stripped clearly.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the ball is rolling towards the sideline, and a Brown picks it up and takes his hands off. And the officials come back saying, no, we called it brilliant. I mean, there were some atrocious calls in this game, Charlton, against both teams. But, does football matter more towards fantasy players or the players on the field? I mean, because only people winning now are the fantasy players, Charlton. I mean, when these networks are putting the fantasy points at the bottom of the screen, just like the points, the score of the game, Charlton, that's concerning. That's real concerning.
Well, I think Hasselbeck told us, he said the #1 fantasy show in the universe. I mean, if the universe put some lighting behind the universe, Big C. But we were just saying, I told you you're the mystic, you're clairvoyant, and people think I'm joking. But when we talked about that skit in Pulp Fiction, it has Vin Rames and John Travolta and Sam Jackson, and it was Bruce Willis when Vin Rames told him he was that fight he was getting ready for. He said, "You go down
in the fourth round."
In the fourth round, and I remember that scene. And he said, "That stinging sensation you feeling, that's pride messing with you." pride. So he said a different word that we can't use on the air. But I thought about that stinking sensation that you're feeling right now. That's pride. But somebody got a hat for that game. You can't tell me they didn't. I've seen it too many times before. And I know that's not what the league wants to hear. But like the good old boy told me, our job is to make people believe that they did not see what they saw with their own eyes. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, when you talk about admonishing players for, wrongdoings and conduct detrimental, these are some officials that should be suspended.
Yeah.
That were involved in that game. They all should get at least a 2-game suspension, Charlton. Yeah. Because it was a travesty what they did yesterday to the league, to the Cleveland Browns, Charlton. Because, I mean, yes, the fans in Oakland wanted to see a win, even though half of them
left
by the time the game was over.
Yeah.
But to do this to an organization, Charlton, that has struggled for a couple of years, with all the adversity that they've had, and if they had an outright opportunity to win the game, Charlton, run out the clock, and you come and take that away from them, Charlton.
Yeah.
So, when you look at this, and the league has to sit there, I know you think about what they did a couple of weeks ago with Clay Matthews and that hit on your cousin in Minnesota.
He's not my cousin.
Minnesota the game.
Yeah.
So we've had the officials this year, Charlton, cost more games, been more important in games than players already. They have determined the outcome of a half a dozen games already this season, Charlton. The officials, not the players, the officials with some atrocious calls.
Yeah, and even one more thing on the Raiders before we go on with the other games, Big C. There was a play where beast mode. Everyone knows that Lynch is hard to tackle. I mean, you're not going to bring him down one-on-one on the corner. Maybe up the gut you can, but there's no DB in the league that's going to bring him down one-on-one. He ran a sweep play to the left side of the field, to his left side, and as he was breaking tackles, he put his hand on the ground, and he broke the tackle. The referee blew the whistle. And then, Beast Mode tried to kick the ball, but he missed. He missed the ball. But I guess he was upset about that. But that was egregious against the Raiders because he probably could have scored a touchdown. But when you talk about quarterbacks that love to give the ball away, you look at Carr and you look at Mayfield, I think you got to reassess who's going to start the next game for Cleveland. But it was a great game nonetheless. John Gruden goes to 79 wins and 84 losses without Tony Dungy's players, and that is worth $100 million. That's what he gets for coaching the Raiders to 84. Get it, 79 wins, 84 losses. But he didn't need the Rooney Rule to get his job. Khalil Mack had a great game, and you think about it. He had a great game, and then Trubisky had a good game, kind of like a shooting star game. Everybody catches a shooting star every now and then. But there's something about this Bears defense. They look like they're one of the top 3 or 4 defenses in the league, Big C, not just in the division. Your thoughts?
Well, Khalil Mack is doing this thing every game, Charlton. He's getting sacks. He's getting strip fumbles, Charlton. He's made an impact. When you look at this Bears defense, they have one of the top linebacking cores in the 3-4 defense in the entire NFL. And you talk about Trubisky, he finally had that come-out game, Charlton. We've looked at all the other young quarterbacks having at least one outstanding game, even 3 or 4, here early in their career. Mitch Trubisky threw 6 touchdowns. Even though he only threw 5, one was a little shuttle pass in the front. They gave him credit for a touchdown on the play, Charlton. But, when you look at the Bears, they were up, 42 points at halftime.
Yeah.
Well, when you talk about Tampa Bay and they say Fitzmagic, Charlton, it wasn't all Fitzpatrick because Jameis Winston came in the game and threw 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
It was just something that, teams have figured out what Tampa's doing offensively, Charlton. After the first 3 games where they lit it up for 400 yards, by Fitzpatrick in those first 3 games, is just everyone has figured out what they're doing offensively, Charlton. And the Bears yesterday, I mean, they right now have an outright chance to win the Central Division.
They probably will.
You figure Minnesota and your cousin is not doing all that well. They got 1 win. Green Bay only has 2 wins. Tampa Bay has 1 win, Charlton. So, when you look at these teams, anybody has an opportunity in this division to win this division. So, don't count anybody out right now, but the Bears are showing a lot of promise with this great defense that they had. Trubisky had his best game as a pro, but this Bears defense, Charlton, every night has been lights out in the NFL Central.
No, I think they've been great. They played the way that we used to seeing the Bears defense play. But just running down a few more games, we talked about what happens when you don't have everybody you had that made you great. And when you look at the Seattle Seahawks, I know a lot of the times They had the win down in the desert, and they actually made it closer than they should have made it, Big C. Pete Carroll, obviously, I want to get your thought on the injury that happened to their best defensive player, actually. It was almost a fluke how you could just get a broken leg by bumping into somebody when all the time you would think with their defense, you would always have collisions that would cause maybe a broken bone or a broken leg. But can you explain how that happened? It was almost like a freak accident, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, that's the thing that people don't understand about injuries in football, Charlton. Most of the injuries that occur in football, you'd never even see them.
No.
We're so accustomed to people getting catastrophic knee injuries and things like that. But the shoulder injuries, the torn pectorals and biceps, Charlton, you never see those. Most people don't realize it only takes 15 pounds of pressure to break a bone.
Yeah.
That's all it takes. And when you think about the number of hits that football players take on their legs and lower extremities, Charlton, from tackles by linebackers, defensive backs, all the time, it's always that odd thing that happens to a player that causes that injury. Your friend Jimmy Garoppolo, when he tore up his knee last week, it was just on a plan. He didn't get hit. He tore up his knee before he got hit.
Yeah.
O.J. The tight end, O.J. Howard, in Tampa tore his knee yesterday just coming down.
Wow.
We saw the defensive end in Miami last week trying to not fall on the car, tear up his knee.
Yeah.
And this thing with when you saw Thomas, he was just getting ready to leap over the receiver who had caught the touchdown and caught his toe in the turf, Charlton, and that leverage, that low flight leverage, fractured his lower leg, Charlton. So the injuries in football, and these are one of the things that players fight about. You think about Thomas holding out, wanting a new contract, wanting to be paid, because players are always looking at these things, Charlton, these injuries that can happen at any time, and no one wants to give them credit for it. They say, oh, well, you play the game, and that's what it's all about.
Yes.
What the NFL players are going to have to do, Charlton, in the next collective bargaining agreement is like, look, we want guaranteed money. That's the one thing that players have never fought for. Players want, all this big money up front. So, no, reduce some of that, get yourself some guaranteed contracts, Charlton.
Like baseball.
And reduce the length of contract that a player can sign to 2 or 3 years. Not these 4 and 5 year contracts. 2 or 3 years, make it guaranteed money, Charlton. So they don't be sitting there and saying, well, I want to renegotiate. I'm 2 years into my contract. I'm 3 years into my contract. Now I want to renegotiate because somebody else is making more money than me now.
Yeah,
and I'm better than him.
Yeah, I agree, man.
So go to your collective bargaining. Negotiate that down. The maximum contract you can sign in the NFL is 3 years, but it's guaranteed money, Charlton.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense too, Big C. When we look at also some of the things, and we talk about the officiating with that Raiders and that Browns game, I want to take you to the Colts. They gambled on, and they gambled and they lost, and it cost them a game. And I didn't understand the thinking about trying to go for it on your own side of the 50. It really cost them, but Andrew Luck tried to cover for his coach, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you think about it. Andrew Luck set a personal record, Charlton, of throwing that ball. That was his 60th throw in the game. And if you go back to our show last week, we touched on Andrew Luck and his lack of arm strength.
Yeah.
He's throwing the ball a copious amount, but he is not putting the velocity on the ball, Charlton. He really doesn't push it down the field. And you think about that last out route that he threw, Charlton, that was a simple 5-yard out. And yes, the ball has to travel 25, 30 yards, but he couldn't get there. It short hopped it like a shortstop.
Yeah.
He could not get there. His arm was tired at that point in the game. And if you recall last week's game when they took him out so that Brissett could throw the deep ball on the Hail Mary because he didn't have the arm strength.
Right.
He said he felt he could make that throw, Charlton, 65 yards. Charlton, he couldn't throw it 30 on the last play that they had in Indianapolis.
Yeah, that really hurt them a lot, too. He's not healthy. Obviously, you got to rush people back because you're paying them that money, Big C. So you got to justify why you're paying them that money. I want to run down a couple more games with you. We talked about that Seahawks, the 2017 win over the Cardinals. The Saints go marching in against the Giants 33-18. When you think about Drew Brees, I was talking to a friend today in the lending business, and he went bike riding, mountain riding over the weekend, and he said he's really sore and stiff. It's hard to get around. Well, he's not as old as Drew Brees, and Drew Brees has these 300-pound linemen chasing at him, but it doesn't matter. He still finds a way to be very productive. He's not one of those 6'4", 6'5" quarterbacks. He's about 6 feet, but he throws the ball as well as anybody in the game. Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, he throws the ball better than anybody in NFL history. You think about in his game next week, he needs 216 yards to become the NFL's all-time yardage leader. He's already broken the reception, the completion record.
Yeah.
Next week, Charlton, he'll have the yardage record. Way through throws, he may have that in the first half, but by the end of the third quarter, he'll be pro football's all-time yardage leader. So he'll hold all the records, Charlton, except for touchdown. The worst move that was made in that game, Charlton.
What's that?
Is that no one realizes. Is that the New York Giants shouldn't have let Teddy Bridgewater leave town. They should have made a trade for him.
Yep.
They should have made a trade for Teddy Bridgewater right there when the game ended, because Eli Manning, he's had a great, illustrious career. But this is one of those things where people hold on too long.
Yeah.
When you hold on to a memory, it's like when you couldn't get rid of that little dirty blanket when you were a kid.
I still got it.
That your parents got to hide it and they try to wash it and everything else. That's what the relationship is with the city of New York and the Giants and Eli Manning. They're holding on to that dirty blanket like Pigpen on Charlie Brown. That little cloud of dust everywhere. That's what Eli Manning is now.
Yeah.
He is a hindrance to all the great weapons that they have. And I love the broadcasters who do the game. They keep trying to bury the offensive line.
Yeah.
Then if the offensive line is not giving Eli the time.
Right.
Charlton, look around. When does Russell Wilson get the time?
Never.
I haven't seen Russell Wilson get. Deshaun Watson hasn't gotten any time. Andrew Luck is not getting any time.
No.
Half the quarterbacks in the NFL are not getting the time. They are being bombarded. And especially if you play against the Chicago Bears, you don't have any time.
No, not at all.
You don't.
Nope.
But, no one is saying that Eli is not recognizing. Eli is not getting rid of the ball. Eli doesn't have the mobility that he once has. Eli's receivers have to wait on the ball. They have to choke down their routes whenever he throws.
Yeah.
Whether it's a little slip pass to Barkley or even trying to get the ball to one of the wideouts. Eli does not possess what it takes right now, or will probably never will again, to be an NFL leading quarterback, Charlton.
Let me get your thoughts on, Garoppolo got the $137 million from the 49ers, and yesterday they played the Chargers close. And sometimes you say, well, they played them close, but they didn't win. I thought they played the Chargers as well as any game that Garoppolo has played in, Big C. They lost at 29-27. But even with that, when you think about passing, Beathard was 23 of 37. He threw 2 picks, but he had 298 yards. But they were in the game. He actually threw more yardage than Phillip Rivers. So when you look at Garoppolo, the $137 million, Beathard, I think he's making $100,000 a year, something like that, Big C. Just being joking about that. But can you tell me how there's a $137 million gap in what you saw yesterday compared to what Garoppolo came and robbed the bank from, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you got to understand, Garoppolo's getting paid $47 million this year, Charlton, guaranteed. That's more than Beathard's entire contract.
Yeah.
And so when you look, one of those interceptions of Beathard came late in the game on a blitz.
Yeah.
That's the one that sealed the game because the Niners were in the game and driving, Charlton.
Yeah.
And James came in with a blitz around a corner blitz there, and James did, and knocked the ball into the defensive lineman's hands.
Yeah.
So that was one of the picks. He only had one up until that point.
Yeah.
But he played an outstanding game at quarterback, Charlton, based on the system. And the 49ers are not much better team with Garoppolo than what they are with Beathard. They're just paying him a lot of money. And this rush to pay these white quarterbacks, when you look around the NFL, and this is not being biased or anything, it's what's going on.
Yeah.
Look at the number of wins that those guys produced yesterday, Charlton.
Yeah.
When you talk about these $100 million quarterbacks, how many wins did they produce? Up and down the ledger, Matthew Stafford lost. Jimmy Garoppolo didn't play. Your cousin, he lost Thursday.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers squeaked out a game because they didn't play anybody. It was like practice. They had a 7-on-7 drill.
Practice. Yeah.
Matt Ryan in Atlanta, what is he doing? 2 games that they've lost consecutively, getting outshot, by other quarterbacks making less money than him. So when you think about the money that's being paid out to these quarterbacks, and then we get all the gripe about players holding out. Earl Thomas. Think about this. The only players that hold out in the NFL are the black players.
Yeah.
Period. And that's, Google it, as you say.
Yep.
Those are the only players that hold out in the NFL.
Yeah.
The white quarterbacks get paid even when they don't want the money. We'll give you money. Your friend Jay Cutler last year, they gave him.
I remember. They forced him to take it.
$10 million last year, and he thought it was Halloween because he dressed up as a quarterback all season long.
All that orange and blue.
He thought it was like Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. You know, it was like Halloween every Sunday. Let's dress up as a quarterback.
That's funny. It's true. You just got to look at it too. Some guys, they pay you to take the money. Others, when you hold out for more money, they say you're trading the team. I guess Tom Brady's not washed up after all with a 38-7 beat down over the Dolphins. Just when you thought the Dolphins had everything lined up to play a game that could really change the shape of their division in the AFC East. You think about what happened when Osweiler is in there doing his thing, and also you think about Brady. No matter what it is, Tannehill was 11-20 a pick. He threw for 100 yards. Guys rush for more than 100 yards in the game, Big C. So he's up and down depending on what it is. But then I look at Brady, 23 of 35. He had 2 picks, but he had 274 yards. And the defense for New England really showed up yesterday, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I've heard the media all year long, Charlton, blast Dak Prescott because he hadn't had a 200-yard passing game.
Yep.
And you saying that Tannehill passed for 100.
100 yards!
but
yeah.
the media won't beat up Tannehill like they beat up Dak Prescott all year long, Charlton, not having 200-yard passing game.
Yeah.
But I think Bill Belichick said it best in a press conference a week or so ago. And in his words, he's like, nobody's made the playoffs yet.
He whispered it.
He whispered to the boys. They didn't understand what he meant, but he said nobody's made the playoffs yet.
Yeah, that's funny.
It's so profound. Everybody gets excited every year.
Yep.
Go back and look at New England. Every year they're 2-1, 2-2, 1-2. This is not uncommon for New England.
No.
You know, they got a new receiver in last game. They had Gordon. They activated him.
Yep.
Showed that he could still play, and he can play in that system called a slant. You know, the running back, Sonny Michel, had an outstanding game. He, along with James White.
Yep.
Gronkowski does his thing. Edelman will be back this week, Charlton.
Yeah.
So when you look at New England catching its stride, I mean, they look at the first couple of games every year, like an extended preseason.
Yeah.
They're figuring things out.
Yeah.
But this is a team that, you know, they change the landscape of their division every time they go out.
Yeah.
When you look at their wins, Charlton, they're 2-2. They're one game out of first place division.
One
and
game
they
out
have
of
to
first
play
place.
Miami again.
That's a good point. I want to speak to one of the most maligned quarterbacks in the NFL when you think about the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott. In fact, he's one of the most maligned quarterbacks in the universe for winning. You know, all he does is win no matter what. The Cowboys with a 26-24 win over the Detroit Lions. And when you look at Prescott, he still doesn't have a great receiving core, but passing, Prescott was 17 of 27, 255 yards, makes nowhere near the same amount of money that Stafford makes for Detroit, 24 of 30, 307 yards. So can you tell me where the $100 million difference coming in between Prescott and Stafford? Last I checked, the Cowboys won that game. And not only did they win the game, you have a quarterback who's making minimum wage beating a guy who's making $100 million, Big C. Your thoughts?
Charlton, every quarterback that he's beaten in his NFL career, he's made minimum wage against them, and he still will never get any credit. You would think that the media would blast these $100 million quarterbacks the way that they blast Dak Prescott, saying that, you know, he's not productive, that he's the problem in Dallas, that he can't get it done. It amazes me every week when I hear the blasphemy that goes on about this guy who makes $800,000 a year or less as a starting NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
And Matthew Stafford, the quarterback that he out-dueled yesterday, Charlton, makes a mere $27 million this season.
Ouch.
A mere $27 million. Has anybody looked at Detroit's record, Charlton? I believe they're 1-3.
Yeah.
They beat New England. They're 1-3. Dallas, I believe, is what, 2-2?
Yeah. Yep.
2-2?
Yep.
Matthew Stafford makes $27 million this year. His team is 1-3.
Wow. Yep.
Google it.
Google it.
So when those guys are on the sports shows or on Fox or on ESPN, Charlton, talking about Matthew Stafford and how good a quarterback he is, how big his arm is.
Yep.
No, the only thing big is his bank account.
It's big. I'll take his big.
But
I'll take it.
He's big on the loss ledger, Charles. And think about this.
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford has never won a meaningful game against a team above 500.
He has not.
Period.
No. But you know what it got him, Big C? $100 million. That's what it got him, Big C. The Packers and the Bills, 22-0. And your friend, he played like he might be your cousin, Big C, because Josh Allen was being told, because I record a lot of things because I don't have time to watch it all, but I did watch McShay and Kiper. They were saying that he's a can't-miss guy. And I wish everybody the best. But when I was watching that game, they didn't put any points on the board. And I was thinking, does Allen play for Buffalo? Well, he was 16 of 33. He threw 2 interceptions, 151 yards. But these guys that we ask you to Google what they say, they were telling you. They told you. I Googled it. They said he's a can't-miss quarterback. Now, I want him to succeed. But sometimes I got to believe what my eyes tell me. Even though Green Bay had a bad game, it was enough to win against a team. Does Buffalo still play football, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I guess when they're playing against your cousin up in Minneapolis, they're okay.
Not my cousin.
Other than that, it's a mystery.
Yeah.
But once again, Josh Allen proved himself, Charlton,
yeah.
that he cannot complete 50% of his passes. I think that's the thing that everybody needs to pay attention to. Not how big his arm is, not how tall he is, not how athletic he is. Jay Cutler was athletic.
Yeah.
Had a rocket cannon for an arm. You can go back to Jeff George years ago. He was athletic, had a rocket for an arm, played with Indianapolis, Oakland, Atlanta,
yep.
and anybody else who wanted somebody to throw a ball to a barn. Okay? These guys could do it.
Yeah.
But they don't know how to complete a pass. You know, everybody talks about Colin Kaepernick, the former 49er quarterback. Say, well, he only had one speed with the pitch, with his pass.
Yeah.
And everything was a fastball.
How do you want it?
Look at Colin Kaepernick's completion percentage as a pro quarterback.
Yeah.
It's above 50%.
Yep.
He's the same size as Josh Allen, same height.
Yep.
Maybe about 10, 15 pounds smaller.
Yeah.
But his completion percentage is much higher. His touchdown to interception ratio will always be higher, Charlton. But Josh Allen is the future in the NFL because he's white, he's big, and he can't complete 50% of his passes.
And that means you get $100 million when he gets his next contract, Big C. I look at the Jaguars and the Jets. Now, I know that I want everyone to do well. Of course, everybody wishes for the best because athletics is tough. It's a tough business. But when I look at what happened to Jacksonville, Bortles, 29 of 38, 1 pick, 388 yards. Darnold, 17 of 34, 164 yards, completed 50% of his passes. But he didn't even crack the 150-yard mark. If I'm looking at the numbers right, Big C, you don't even throw for that. But I know they're saying that he's a can't-miss guy. I still believe he would have done better for himself. He had 167 yards, actually. He would have done better for himself to get more polish and one more year at USC. But take the money. Who wouldn't take the money? But this is against what Big C Sports is saying. Just Google it and watch what the pundits told you before these guys were drafted. And watch what they say to make excuses when they have subpar performances. Everybody wants someone to succeed. But when you get outperformed, you got to just say, you got to own up to it. Jaguars 31, Jets 12. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you got to go back and look at Darnold's first game. Who did he beat?
The Giants. I'm not the Giants, the Lions. The Lions.
The Lions. And what did the Lions just do this past weekend, Charlton?
They were lying that they were playing football, Big C. They were lying that they were a good football team.
They went out there, Charlton, and laid an egg.
Yeah.
When you look at Darnold, and you're going to
hold on, Big C. You just caught me. Do lions lay eggs, or is that something new down south with your experiments you're working on, Big C? Just clarify that, please. I never saw a lion lay an egg.
Well, Charlton, there's a lot of things. Well, we got one in Washington in the White House.
Okay.
It all depends on how he's lying.
Okay.
But when you think about what Darnold is, Charlton,
yeah.
Every week he is forced to play against NFL defensive backs. Okay.
Yes.
That first game of the season against Detroit, no one had film on him, Charlton.
No.
Every week they have film on him now.
Yeah.
So it's not a mystery. You know where his weaknesses is. You know where his prevailing thoughts are, Charlton.
Yeah.
So this is the thing that you face. You have guys in the NFL, this is all they do is break down film, Charlton.
Yeah.
They find out what your weaknesses are. They find out where their opponents are susceptible.
Yep.
And you going out playing this defense in Jacksonville, Charlton?
Yeah.
And you struggling? This is not the place where you beat. He had just lost to the Dolphins. They beat him up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they beat him up, Charlton.
Yeah.
Now he don't want to go down to Florida. He might want to take vacation somewhere else in the offseason.
That's funny, Big C. I want to bring up a game that might have been the game of the day. In fact, there were two of them. The first one, the Bengals 37, the Falcons 36. In reality, a Bengal would maul a Falcon. Okay, if it's the Animal Kingdom, we know it being slaughtered, Big C. But this game had quarterbacks at $100 million guys. And they threw the ball all over the football stadium, Mercedes-Benz Stadium down there in Georgia. And when I look at the passing, just think about how much the ball was in the air. Dalton, 29 of 41, one pick, 337 yards. Ryan, 29 of 39, 419 yards, and it came up short. Sometimes you can pass yourself out of a game. Remember in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, they had New England on the hook. In fact, it was a blowout by halftime. And instead of running the ball to run the clock, they let Ryan keep passing the ball, and he passed them into the loss column from being up 28-3. I saw the same thing yesterday. They're going to pad his numbers. He threw for 419 yards, but sometimes you rather have running backs run for 119 than a quarterback pass them for 419, and you lose, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you think about this. Consecutive games that you score 36 points and you lose. That's the Atlanta Falcons. They lost last week to New Orleans. They lost this week to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
You know, and you talk about that. They lack the running game, and they have a solid running game, Charlton.
I know it.
They dominate when they run the ball.
Yep.
And you wonder, why do they get away from that?
Audible. It's called audibles, Big C. It's called audibles.
It's called audibles.
Yeah.
You become impatient. You know, you see the other quarterback on the opposing team performing well. Last week he was against Drew Brees. He knew that Drew Brees was going to put up 400 yards.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I got to match Drew Brees. This becomes a mental thing with Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
Everybody is saying, well, this Falcons defense has been beat up all year long.
Yeah.
But they've kept them in the games. But you got to give your defensive players some rest. This is one of the things people don't understand. When you have these high-profile quarterbacks,
yep,
and you try to go down and score quickly,
yeah,
your defense is tired. They're spending too much time on the field.
Yep.
That's what it is with Matt Ryan. And so when you don't convert, you go 3 and out. You might put together a couple of drives and get your yardage, pad, your stats, Charlton. But you have a solid running game.
Yeah.
You have an offensive line that's built for running the football, and yet you keep getting away from it.
Yeah.
You know, the two backs that they had in the game, Coleman and the rookie kid that they had, Charlton,
yeah,
were just gashing out yards.
Yeah.
But he wasn't satisfied with that. You know, he wants to prove that he's worth $155 million.
Yeah.
And right now, being 1-4, Charlton, and Atlanta's hosting the Super Bowl,
yeah,
I think they better go on StubHub and see what the tickets are going for.
They might want to get them on StubHub, Big C. Another game that might be the game of the day. When you look at the Tennessee Titans, 26-23 overtime win over the Eagles, Titans over the Eagles, 26-23 overtime. And I look at the great performances. Wentz was 33 of 50, 348 yards, and Mariota, 30 of 43, one pick, 344 yards. That was a great game. It was everything that football should be. And most people thought that the Eagles would win that game. But, you know, it's hard to repeat as a Super Bowl champion. And right now, it's hard to even get out of the gate. Will they even be 500 at the halfway mark, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that's going to be a big question. You know, you think about everyone is praising Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
How great a job he's done. You would have thought that Marcus Mariota wasn't even in the NFL.
I know it.
He goes out there and outduels him, Charlton, and he just came back from a wrist injury.
Yeah.
And you know, what I want to give credit to is Coach Vrabel.
Yeah.
He went for it 3 times on 4th down, Charlton, and the team, you know, got all of them. You know, they converted all 3 of those 4th down conversions, Charlton, to keep the drives going.
Yep.
And they did it in overtime, Charlton, to go down and get the winning score. So you want to think about, you know, this Tennessee team, Charlton, that hasn't given up. They go out there and they fight. You know, everyone had just anointed Philadelphia Eagles as defending Super Bowl champs, that they were going back.
Yep.
You know, they're in a dogfight in their own division, Charlton. They're tied with the Cowboys.
Yeah.
So, you know, they haven't pulled away from anybody. They're tied with the Redskins.
Hey, Big C.
They're right there.
Big C.
You know,
how about the Cowboys? That's what Jimmy Johnson said. A lot of people were throwing Dak under the bus for winning, but you don't have to. Sometimes throwing for 400 yards will cost you it will cost you a game because you're not running the clock. And every time you put the ball in the air for those incompletions, you're stopping the clock. I mean, Emmitt Smith, I think back to when I hear about the quarterback, running back controversy, who should get paid more money. When Jerry Jones didn't sign Emmitt after they won a Super Bowl because he thought Troy Aikman could be that new Matt Ryan, or the back in the day Matt Ryan, or Carson Wentz, or whoever it is, it was they were 0-2. Why? Because they did not have the running game. Now running backs are maligned, most of them African American. The quarterbacks are praised, most of them Caucasian. They always have this hype that you need to have a guy who's going to break the bank and throw for 400 yards a game, and it's going to cost you games. You rarely have quarterbacks throwing for 400 yards on the winning side. That you can Google that too. Running games win football games, Big C. The game coming up tonight, the final game that we'll talk about in tonight's NFL, is Patrick Mahomes and the Denver Broncos. That's up a mile high. You know, Mahomes is America's new darling right now. He's not as praised as Carson Wentz. He's not as praised as Matt Ryan. And he's not as praised as a lot of the other good boys. Garoppolo that hasn't won anything. But give me your thoughts on this game tonight, Kansas City's offense against Denver's defense. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you know, Denver's going to have some trouble in the back end. They've lost one of their starting defensive backs. But they have a ferocious pass rush that can cause all kind of problems for Mahomes.
Yeah.
We're going to see how quick he is tonight, Charlton, with his release. Can he get the ball out on time? Because if he has to sit there and hold it, they have speed in that front four of Denver. Von Miller will be all over him, Charlton. A big challenge is going to be on the other side for Case Keenum.
Yeah.
You know, Kansas City has an outstanding pass rush also. And he struggled last week's game, Charlton.
Yeah.
But this is going to be a big challenge. Now, you know, you think about the record pace that Mahomes is on. He has thrown 13 touchdown passes in his first 3 games, Charlton.
Wow.
No interception.
Wow.
This is his coming out party, just like we saw with Mitch Trubisky yesterday in Chicago.
Yeah.
We will find out tonight if Patrick Mahomes is for real.
Well, we will definitely find out. I would want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. For every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They work with Big C Sports, whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, a high school team, or your mom and pop soccer league. When you reach out to them, let them know Big C sent you. The band is out on the field! Big C, that was a Cal and Stanford big game back in the day, the great Joe Starkey. Stanford didn't have the band on the field. The Notre Dame Irish have their own great band in their own rights. But the Notre Dame, that football team, the Fighting Irish, I think they got Stanford. And you're right on that. I picked Stanford, you picked Notre Dame. I'm not going against the Mystic next time unless you send me some of that shine that helps me become clairvoyant, Big C. But that Cook Book is his name. He's out of El Dorado Hills, Oak Ridge High School. He played in the same league that Jake Browning played with when he was at Folsom up in the Sacramento area. But he makes a difference for their offense. But Stanford was out of gas, and Love couldn't get no love from touchdown. He should have get paid his tithes before the game. He didn't give Jesus the tithes, Big C. That's why he couldn't find his footing, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this Notre Dame team has just been outstanding.
Yeah.
You know, in the past couple of weeks with Book coming in at quarterback. He's been able to get the ball out on time. He's able to find open receivers, Charlton, and give them a good ball to catch. That's the difference. And this Notre Dame defense has been lights out, Charlton. They held Stanford in check. Now, you got to understand, Stanford came off a miraculous win against Oregon.
Yeah.
So emotionally, they were spent.
Yeah,
and then they had to fly across country, Charlton, to a rival game against Notre Dame, which is almost like a conference game because they play every year.
Every year, yeah.
But you got to like what Kelly has done there in Notre Dame, Charlton. Right now, they're in the driver's seat as far as making the college football playoffs.
Yeah.
They have one tough game left on their schedule, Charlton, and they can go 12-0. And if they go 12-0, how do you find a reason to keep them out of the college football playoffs?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, they are right there, Big C. Kelly's done a great job coaching, and I think it wasn't too long ago that he was actually on the hot seat at Notre Dame. They were trying to get rid of that good old boy, but he's done a good job at building Notre Dame up into a championship team again. And I was just impressed the way their linemen, and again, Stanford was a little bit tired and jet lagged, but you got to give Notre Dame credit. I thought that was a good win for the Fighting Irish. Should Jimbo Fisher, Texas A&M, be fired after grabbing a player's face mask, doing a timeout and shaking it? Big C, I thought I was watching Woody Hayes on the sideline. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, in this day and age of media coverage and all that, they cannot give him a pass. You know, everybody wanted to ride Urban Meyer a couple of weeks ago for being involved in something that was atrocious.
Yeah.
We saw Woody Hayes do that decades ago in a bowl game against Clemson, where he grabbed the linebacker by the face mask and threw a punch at him. You know, at Arizona State decades ago, Frank Kush was notorious for that.
That's right.
And it cost him his job over time, Charlton.
Yeah.
So when we see Jimbo Fisher in this day and age, Charlton, of abuse, and that it's not tolerated any longer, I don't care how much money you paid the guy, because if he's willing to grab a player by the face mask during a live broadcast game, Charlton, what will he do to belittle a player in practice? You know, what levels will he stoop to? So for him to be able to go through this unscathed without any type of disciplinary action from Texas A&M, Charlton, at least a 2-game suspension.
Yeah.
Now, you see players, you know, if they take their helmet off, throw it, Charlton, they get suspended. If they do targeting, they get suspended. Here's a guy who targeted a player, Charlton, a coach, who targeted a player who could not defend himself. He couldn't retaliate. If he had retaliated against Fisher and put his hand on Fisher's throat, what would have happened, Charlton? Would he have lost his scholarship?
Wow.
You know, would he have been arrested?
Wow.
Think about that. There was 2 levels. No one is talking about that. Everybody's saying, you know, well, Fisher grabbed the player by his face mask. If that player had grabbed Fisher by the throat and put him to the ground, Charlton, what would have happened to that young man? He would have been arrested and lost his scholarship.
And I want to bring this up also because I know Bobby Knight was notorious for kicking chairs and yelling and that mentality. In this age of no sexual assault, no violence against anybody, what do you now? Let me just go there because I want to go there. We've heard about this Black Lives Matter movement and how you want to make sure that people are safe and cut down on, you know, the criminal justice system. We need some reform. We need to keep women safe. We need to keep everybody safe. But when have you seen an African American coach grab a player by the face mask and shake it on broad, you know, live television? And to have this happen, we're trying to teach men to keep their hands off women. What did he just show men you can do when you can't hold your cool, Big C? What did he just show them?
He's showing that violence is acceptable as long as it's coming from the one in power.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we're trying to get over. You can't empower somebody who has an advantage over somebody else. And this is what happened with Fisher. And they're going to give him a pass on this, Charlton. The media is going to give him a pass. Texas A&M is going to give him a pass. The conference president is going to give him a pass. You know, and so it's going to be swept under the rug. But this shouldn't be tolerated. We've seen coaches in the past, Charlton, lose their jobs and their careers. You talked about Bobby Knight. Bobby Knight grabbed the player by the throat and lost his job at Indiana for that, Charlton. And there's been many other coaches, Charlton, that have shoved players and things and lost their jobs and been suspended. But Jimbo Fisher not to have any disciplinary action after this incident, Charlton, on television. And anybody can Google it. You want to Google it? Google it. It's there on your little phone or on your tablet, whatever. He grabbed the player by the face mask. You know, on the field. This is what's not tolerated in sports. This happened when I was a player in college, Charlton. This was a normal incident. Back in the days, like I said, when Frank Kush was at Arizona State, when Woody Hayes was at Ohio State. When I played in college, Charlton, I saw coaches do this to players on a regular basis. But in this day and age, Charlton, of respect and nonviolence, it can't be tolerated and it can't be left unpunished.
That's very good. Urban Meyer suspended for something he did not do. Ohio State, Penn State, what a game. What an incredible environment. That is what college football is. You had the whiteout crowd. You had over 100,000 fans at Penn State Stadium. That's a beautiful stadium there. And I just know that that's what makes college football great. To have the Ohio State Buckeyes and their quarterback, who's so well spoken, you would think that he's already in the NFL. I thought both quarterbacks had a great game. It was a great coach game back and forth. I thought Franklin took some undue criticism on the end for why did he not get the chance to pass the ball? I mean, no matter who you blame, that was a great game, Big C. Just give me your thoughts on both quarterbacks, your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, you know, this was a game that was well played. I mean, the kid from Penn State, I mean, he set a record as far as, you know, Penn State total offense rushing. He set a rushing record for quarterbacks there at the university. I mean, Haskins at Ohio State, Charlton, I mean, when I look at this young man, I see somebody who's already NFL ready. When you talk about a polished passer, a presence, you know, this atmosphere at Happy Valley. I mean, it was happy for 59 minutes. Penn State played an outstanding game offensively, defensively, Charlton, special team-wise. They did all you could expect of them to win a game.
Yeah.
You know, but we all know the game is about 60 minutes.
Yeah.
I look at Ohio State on the flip side, and the winner of this game, Charlton, the past couple of years, have gone on and won the conference. So Ohio State has an inside track on that right now.
Well,
But you have to have some concerns about their offense since Urban Meyer has returned, Charlton.
Yeah.
They declined each week, point production-wise, that Urban Meyer has been back.
Yeah.
And so that needs to resonate with everybody. The game that they played against Tulane, their point production was down. The game against Penn State here, their point production was down even more.
Yeah.
So that has to be concerning, you know, that these players, that, you know, when you talk about has somebody lost the locker room?
Yeah.
Has Urban Meyer lost the locker room because his team may have been happy and content when he wasn't around there with his cantankerous attitude?
Cantankerous attitude indeed, Big C. Speaking of cantankerous attitude, Alabama, what a nail-biter. Alabama going down to the wire until kickoff, Big C, with a good beat down in their game. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, all the bettors in the world were happy at halftime because Alabama had covered the point spread.
Yep.
I mean, they were elated. Everybody, you know, going out having the cocktails or whatever. Come back, 29 minutes later, they were no longer covering the point spread. Point spread, Charlton, on that game was 48.5.
Yeah.
They were up by 49 at halftime.
Yeah.
And at the end of the game, Charlton, they had lost and they were only up by 42.
Why do you think that's the case, Big Z?
Well, Charlton, the thing about with these bettors all over the world, Charlton, well, we won the game. And, Nick Saban is trying to figure out what they did wrong. They missed a field goal in the game, Charlton. I'll give them credit for that. So they do have something to work on this one.
Yeah.
That Alabama missed the field goal. But other than that, Charlton, it's hard to find a flaw in this team, Charlton. They are just dominant from start to finish.
Yeah, I think about being dominant from start to finish. And what a great game also when you look at what happened with Clemson and Syracuse. Syracuse is legit. In fact, they had that game wrapped up until that final drive that Clemson went on. And, no matter how you call it, you could call penalties if you wanted to. But the fact that they came from behind and pulled out a win with all that controversy going, I thought with the quarterback they kept that they were not able to get outside of the pocket as much as they could have. But that's what Dabo had to deal with when he made a change. But Syracuse beat them last year. They're a lot better team than people give them credit. But what a nail-biter for Clemson as well as Ohio State. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they lost Trevor Lawrence, Charlton, early in the game, who was a rookie quarterback that, caused Kelly Bryant to transfer when Dabo Swinney named him as a starter.
Yeah.
But, him such just like a Jimmy Garoppolo. You got to know how to get out of bounds, Charlton. Kelly Bryant would have dipped out of bounds.
Yep.
You can't think that you can take on these huge linebackers and defensive backs in college football. This is not high school football. Cost him a concussion. It all depends on how severe this concussion is, Charlton. Will he miss next week's game?
Yeah.
Travis Etienne pulled it out. Great running back for Clemson, had over 200 yards on the ground, Charlton. But when you look at what Syracuse did, and you talked about Syracuse knocked off, Clemson last year at home.
Yeah.
They played. Their quarterback, Dungy, Charlton, was excellent in this game.
He's good.
A critical mistake down, in the stretch, Charlton. But, you got to like what Syracuse has done. They turned around their program, Charlton. They're 3-1 on the season. They played. They should have won this game.
Yeah.
They actually should have won this game.
Oh, yeah.
I know people will start questioning the coach, but, it was an excellent game either way, Charlton.
Yeah, and when you think about excellent game, I do want to take some time to say again, thoughts and prayers. Tennessee State linebacker Kristen Abercrombie is still in critical condition after suffering a head injury versus Vanderbilt, rushed to the hospital. Big C, we got to find out how to make the game safe, but it's probably as safe as it can be. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it is. He went to the sideline complaining of headaches, and he collapsed on the sideline, Charlton. They rushed him to the hospital. They were there at Vanderbilt, one of the top universities and medical centers on a college campus, Charlton, in the United States. He was rushed in, had emergency brain surgery, Charlton.
Yeah.
He's still in critical condition. But, when we look at these things, and the college and the high school players, Charlton, don't get enough coverage. All the talk is about the NFL, who all the time has the best medical staff around.
Yep.
They travel with team doctors. You have the best of facilities right there in the stadiums, Charlton. But all the universities and all the high schools are not privy to that, Charlton. And even to touch even further on that, there was a young man in Georgia, Charlton, who lost his life over the weekend, Dylan Thomas, who was in the same situation as Alexander. He collapsed, Charlton, on the sideline after making a tackle. And, you know, he was rushed to the hospital, Charlton. Unfortunately, he succumbed a couple of days later, Charlton, and lost his life. And this happens every year. You know, they talk about making the game safe.
Right.
But you got to realize at the high school levels, Charlton, it's probably 10 times even more dangerous because of the number of players.
Yeah.
So 10 times the number of incidents that we see in college and in pros happen on the high school level, Charlton. It's just not nationally televised, so we don't always see and understand these incidents when they occur.
That's very true, Big C. Again, our thoughts and prayers are to the young man's family, and it's something that we love watching these games, but we just want to make sure that we keep better medical people on the sidelines, especially for the younger people. And just as we close out, Big C, Nebraska's now, I mean, Scott Frost, that experiment coming back, you know, he was a transfer too. I believe he was on the Stanford University Cardinal football team before he transferred to Nebraska and had a historic season there. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he was, Charlton. So when they talk about these quarterbacks leaving programs, Charlton, you think about this. Generally, the quarterback that leaves a program is a white quarterback because he's been beat out by a black quarterback. They leave all the time. The quarterback at Central Florida, Charlton, was that quarterback with Jalen Hurd at Alabama 2 years ago when I think they barbecued that horse down there in Texas from SC. They still haven't found the horse.
They deep-fried him and barbecued him, Big C. Deep-fried and barbecued him.
He started the game. Charlton Hurd came in at halftime. He transferred. He transferred to Arizona State.
Yeah.
Couldn't win the job at Arizona State, Charlton. He transferred to Central Florida, where he has finally won the job down there.
Yeah.
Jared Stidham at Auburn is a transfer from Baylor, Charlton. This goes on all around the country. And even the quarterback at LSU is a transfer from Ohio State.
Wow.
Because he could not beat out Haskins.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So when we look at this, it's been okay, Charlton, for the white quarterbacks to transfer in college. It's been acceptable. Kelly Bryant transferred from Clemson. All the media went apoplectic.
I know.
They said, you know, how could he walk out on his teammates? You don't turn your back on your team. Well, when you were no longer the starting quarterback, it wasn't your team any longer.
No.
You were just a backup. And so none of them have ever said this in the past. Go back, Google, pull up any sports show when these quarterbacks have transferred.
Yeah.
And Bryant was just the third quarterback, Charlton, to transfer from Clemson this year. Not the first, the third.
Yeah.
So when people want to beat him up about that, Charlton, they can't. And Scott Frost, matter of fact, the quarterback that was there last year, Charlton, transferred because Scott Frost started a freshman.
Yeah.
He transferred. So when you start looking at these universities, you got to ask yourself in Nebraska, has Scott Frost lost the locker room? You can't walk in there and tell these kids that weren't even born how Nebraska used to be when you played there.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear that. Things have changed. You're not the Big Eight any longer. That conference is defunct.
Yeah,
just like the history of Nebraska back in that time. You know, people want to say, well, you know, Mike Riley did this to the team. They lost the last 4 games that Mike Riley coached.
Yeah.
He may have lost the locker room.
Yeah.
But they've lost the first 4 games that Scott Frost has coached. So he never gained the locker room. He needs to change his mindset, his attitude, his look on these young men that he's trying to mold, okay?
Yeah.
You can't come in there and beat these guys up. Ask Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah.
It don't work.
Yeah, I want to see what pushback we'll get over Jimbo Fisher. If you can't hit women, you shouldn't be able to grab a man by the face mask and shake his neck around. Now, what if he has some type of injury because of that? We just can't tolerate that. So, Big C, as we close, the Dodgers out of Los Angeles, the Dodgers at Chavez Ravine, they've closed out the Colorado Rockies, so they will advance on into the hunt for October and the playoffs, which is what we all are looking forward to. The NFL is fantastic. But the refereeing is not fantastic, Big C. I think if you're going to have instant replay, you should also be able to say we can correct the referee's call. Don't just have it for what you call in the field. Have someone who can override what you see on TV. If you want to get the garbage in the betting and Vin Rames' favorite lines out of sports, Big C, you got to start having instant replay on the replay, Big C. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, you got to look at the NFL. 4 weeks into the season, Charlton, we've already had 7 overtime games.
Wow.
It's on a record pace right now.
Yep.
You know, and you got to understand later on, because these overtime games have been shut down to 10 minutes instead of 15 minutes, will some team later on in the season, Charlton, play for overtime to knock somebody out of the playoffs?
Talk about strategic alliance. I know a lot of good old boys. When I hear a lot of you guys, you like to run from Buford T. Justice, Big C. You always scoot that other guy off the side of the road so Buford D can stop and check on him while you can get away. But speaking of getting away, you can get away too every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide, where you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, as we always tell you, there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage all on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.